everybody, and thank you for joining us today for Hacking Your Career, Top 10 Ways to Stand Out in Your Cyber Career. We're here with Russell. Thank you, Russell, for joining us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, really excited for this one today. I love the ones that are more, career-based and about, how to kind of help with your career path and stand out in those ways. So
good. I get asked a lot of these questions a lot of times. And actually, I'm going to add a story I've never told ever before to open up. But everything is real. I've learned it all the hard way. And my sincere desire is for people to not have to make the same mistakes or pitfalls that I've had.
We're certainly glad to have you, Russell. And thanks to everybody for joining PreShow Banter. Russell Eubanks and I go back a long way. We worked together. Russell is a SANS instructor and became a good friend when we worked there together. He was, I think, a paid, we always like to say a volunteer who paid his way to volunteer, and also did some community type events and then became a certified instructor. And so we're really, really, really happy to have him here. It's always a pleasure. And I have to be honest, Russell is probably one of the nicest men I know.
But Velda, you were going to talk about, what is today again?
Today is National Landline Telephone Day.
I wonder how many people still have one of those.
Good question, Shelby.
How many people here have used one of those?
Definitely used. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I have a little story I'd like to share.
Yes.
Because, as you all know, I grew up in the sticks of Nebraska, right? My parents were farmers, and I went to a one-room country schoolhouse until I was in the 5th grade. We had, not only did we have a landline phone, we had a party line.
Ooh.
How many people know what a party line is?
Yeah.
I know what it is.
I don't know if people are going to know what that is.
Well, let me tell you.
It's like early Zoom on a landline.
True.
Yeah.
Without the video.
In my neighborhood, it was 6 families. Think about this. 6 families with 2 to 10 kids each having one line for all of those people. So think about living in one house with one telephone, with one cell phone, right? And 40 people get to share it, right? So it was always interesting because you always knew what was going on in the neighborhood because you could pick up the phone and listen in. My father's family built this school, right? So this one-room country schoolhouse. So surrounding the country schoolhouse was all this farmland, right? And it was really good bottom farmland, right? So it produced a lot of corn or milo or whatever they produced on it. My dad's uncle, so my great uncle, farmed this land, right? And so his name was Theodore, but everybody called him Tater. So he was Uncle Tater to us. So Tater. Remember, we've got 6 families on this party line, right? So one day, it was fall one day, and Uncle Tater was out combining, right? So harvesting the crop.
Right.
Combine caught on fire. My mom saw it, but the neighbor saw it. He got to his house first on the party line to call the fire department. Just as he was talking to the fire department, my mom picked up the phone to also call the fire department, and she heard the neighbor say, "Come quick, Tater's bottom is on fire."
Oh, too much.
So he immediately hung up. I mean, that's all he said was, so my mom had to call it up. But I love that story just because my mom happened to pick up at the same time that he was dialing, and the volunteer fire department got there. The combine was up in flames and it was all over.
So did he get any fun nicknames like Fried Tater or smoked Tater?
Baked Tater.
Oh man.
Baked Tater.
No, he didn't get any nicknames, but I will tell you a cool story about him. He was 105 years old when he passed away, which would have been in like 2000 or 2001. He drove right up to the day he died. But what was really cool about him was he was in World War I.
Wow.
So a lot of cool
Awesome.
history. A lot of cool history that come from good genes. I did want to bring up one other thing. As many of you know, we do a lot of charity. When we do our live training, 10% of all of our revenue, we donate out to a charity of the trainer's choice. So it's just really important to John and Erica to do that. I just want to make sure, I want to kind of spotlight a charitable organization that's kind of near and dear to my heart. It's the Center for Cyber Safety and Education. Megan and I formerly worked for another organization who kind of supports this, but I love what they do, because they not only do great things across the country, across the world, right? And they provide, they're looking for people to volunteer as cybersecurity professionals. So while the money aspect is really important, it's also really important that we share our time. And I don't know, I just think the Center for Cyber Safety and Education is a great organization. But if you guys have a chance, go over and see how you can support your local community with their help. Again, financial needs are always important, but it's also good that we share our knowledge and our time, with those in our local community as well. So I wanted to get that out of the way. All right, I'm done talking because I've talked myself to death here. Sorry, guys.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks so much. And wow, look at all the people joining. When Velda reached out, first, it was fantastic to get to catch up because it had been so long since we spoke and connected, and look forward to seeing each other in person soon. But when Velda said, "Hey, will you consider doing this?" I said, "Yes. What do you want me to do?" So glad it worked out. So glad to see so many people here, and really appreciate the work that Wild West Hackin Fest and BHIS is doing. I've been a longtime fan, listener, and just awesome to be, I guess, on this side of the presentation. So I'd like to spend some time talking about something that's near and dear to me. And this one's an experiment. I've never given this presentation before. You may have heard me talk about some of these things if you've heard me talk about things before, but I want to try something. A presentation with just pictures, no words, except for, well, the first and the last one where there's words. And my idea is, how can we turn our hacking mindset into hacking our career, and some lessons learned, some things that I've had to learn the hard way that I hope that you don't have to learn, well, the hard way. So I'm going to do that by telling you a story. I've never shared this story. I told when we got online and did our tech check, I've never shared this story before, or never in this detail. So here's the thing. I'm just like you. Well, maybe when I worked in a place that used equipment like this, it's a steel press, a 300-ton steel press. Maybe I was dirtier and grungier and just stinkier. But my job back in 1996 was working in a factory using a piece of equipment that looks a whole lot like that. Now, of course, back then they didn't have a camera to actually say the one, but when I asked the internet, show me what that looks like. As I look at the picture now, it's like, oh, I remember how awful and not safe sometimes. A blue-collar factory job, and I was a college dropout. I went to college, didn't quite work out. That effort thing got in my way. I was working 4:30 p.m. till 3 a.m., sometimes 6 days a week. It was good money for the place I was working in, Southeast rural Tennessee. But I thought to myself, I don't want to look at that machine for the next 30 years. I want to do something else. I feel like I can do more. I feel like I can contribute in a different way. So literally went into work early one day, knocked on the door to HR. Hey, HR, seems like when y'all hired me, it seemed like you said something about tuition reimbursement. if I understand it, you'll pay for me to go to school because I come and work on machines like this? And they said, well, yes, we will. But you go pay the fees, bring us the receipts, and we've never had anybody from the plant I worked at, to ask this. We'll figure out all this stuff while you go and do that. But yes, if you will go to school and give us your receipt, then we'll pay for your school. That's exactly how I got my start in technology and ultimately in cybersecurity. So, I think very often about what that looked like, what my life used to look like when that happened. And then most recently was privileged to actually work in that building. Not been there in a long time and been gone almost a year now, but I was, up until last year, the Senior Vice President, Chief Information Officer, and Chief Information Security Officer of Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. I can actually see where some key areas I used to work at. So when I was there, I had the privilege of leading very large, very important missioned cybersecurity teams. And so you ask, when you look at where I started from to where recently I was at, kind of think of questions of, well, what happened? What did you do? How do you go from where I literally was to where I most recently was at? And for me, the best advice I've ever been given came to me when I was working at that factory in that steel room, wearing steel toe boots and having just grime and dirt all over me all the time. Someone gave me some advice. They were not technical persons. There wasn't a word cyber at that time, but their advice was this. Their advice was, get wisdom as cheaply as you can. Get wisdom as cheaply as you can. That's my goal for the time that we get to spend together today. And I'm just amazed to look at the number of people here. Thank you. So many people. My goal is for you to get wisdom as cheaply as you can from some of the mistakes that I've made. And with this, putting some practices that I've put in place, dare I say, habits that I've installed. So here's what I'm going to share with you today. Over the next, let's say 45 minutes or so, I'm going to talk about 10 different habits that I've installed. Now, that's a whole lot. And a lot of people, when they say, oh, when you go and present, don't have 10, have like 3 or 4 things. I'm going to quickly go through them. And I hope that you consider applying just one of them in your life. Whether you're new to cybersecurity or you want to get into cybersecurity, you've been in cybersecurity for a while, or like me, you're old and you've been in cybersecurity for a while, you're a seasoned cybersecurity professional, I believe that this talk is definitely for you. So let's get started. The first of the 10 things that I want to talk about is here. Simple thing. Be known for coming to every meeting with an agenda. Seriously. Like, think of the next time that you get to, versus you have to, you get to meet with your boss and you get to talk about different things. What would it look like to, in advance of that meeting, have an agenda sorted in priority order and about the things that are most important to you? And at the top of the list, what would it look like on the top of the list to say, hey, boss, hey, leader, hey, CISO, hey, whatever your boss name or title is, what do you want to talk about first? Let's talk about the things that are most important to you, because those should be things that are important to you too, and also shows a little bit of respect and also invites them into that. They can start to get used to it. I've done this, and I think the minds of my leaders when I did that, just like, it's like, whoa, nobody does that. And that's why I want you to do that. Have an agenda. What are the things that you're going to talk about? What are the things that are important in priority order? If you don't get to the other ones, great, copy, paste, make a new one for the next time. But be very intentional about how you're taking advantage of the audience that you have with your boss. And it could very well be that they can help you solve some of your problems. At my last full-time job, one of the things that I said is for all the IT people and all the security people that I was privileged to lead at the last job, I put out a challenge to them. I said, when you, not if you, but when you get invited to a meeting, if there's no agenda, just click decline. If there's no agenda, say, no, I'm not going to go. And when someone says, hey, I really wanted you to join this meeting, why did I get a decline from your meeting? Are you on vacation? Is it a bad time? Here's what I want you to say. I want you to say that my grumpy boss, Russell, gave me permission to not join that meeting because there's no agenda. I don't know if you need me. I don't know if it's necessary. I'm not sure if I'm going to attend. Forcing their hand, hopefully, you got some leverage to say, what specifically do you need from me? What exactly is my contribution or expected contribution? Then make a decision of accept or not accept. So pro tip for that, think and consider in that way, what would it look like if you decided if there's no agenda, no meet. So no agenda, no meet would be your pro tip for the first one. The second one is this, the second out of 10 things we'll cover here is find that hill. You know the one. Maybe it's this one. For me, it was the topic of visibility. I literally went on the record. I literally talked with my boss, my team, my leaders, several companies, saying the thing that's most important to me, the hill, the metaphorical hill that I'm willing to die on is a lack of visibility. I want to make sure that I, and by I mean the teams that I'm privileged to lead, have all the visibility needed to be able to know and be able to respond as quickly as possible whenever, things happen. I was known for it. I talked about it all the time. I even made a cute little analogy. Sometimes speaking in analogies will help kind of bring that point home. And so I live in the Atlanta area. Before, this last year, I used to get on a Delta airplane all the time and go a whole lot of places. But as I get onto the airplane and I'd look to the left, I'd see there were pilots up in the front of the airplane. And they've had instruments that for communication, they have instruments for radar, they have instruments for making sure that the air flow is coming down to the seat that you're sitting at, all those things that they had. And never once did I question, hey, you've got too much information, you've got too much visibility. Instead, I'm glad they had all the things that they had, the sensors and the things necessary to take me from Atlanta to wherever I get to go next, whenever that day does come back again. And I would use that to say, like those Delta pilots, we don't have everything we need. We need more visibility to make sure that we can respond as quickly as possible. I would talk about the visibility. I made that my hill to die on. Now, I didn't die, and I'm not looking for that, and it's not maybe a little bit too dramatic to speak that way, but that's the thing that I was having. So my pro tip for you for the second one is find your hill. And don't find a bunch of them, find one and be known for something. What's that cause, that just cause, that thing that keeps you up at night? The thing that you wake up before the alarm clock goes off because you're so worried and concerned about. Find that thing, be known for that thing until you've conquered that hill. Third one, be a mentor. And find a mentor. Sometimes when you're in a mentoring relationship, you might just literally be one step ahead of the person that you're working with. That's awesome. And that happens to me all the time. A couple of pro tips there. Make sure that when you say that, you don't just say, hey, Velda, you're really good at communications. Can you help me be a better communicator? That's very specific and that's very good. If I go to Velda and say, Velda, will you be my mentor? Well, Velda's probably going to say, what is it that you see in me? What part of Velda is it that you're trying to be like, Russell? Be specific. Ask that question. I see that you're really good at giving presentations and having stories. When you give presentations and people remember your stories and they have a call to action and they do things. Can you help me do that? So trying to be specific in that, both with being a mentor, helping someone else, and also recognizing, like all of us, we're all human, we can all stand to improve. So being in both relationships as a mentor and as a mentee. So the pro tip there, again, be specific of what you want from your mentor. What is it? What one or two, three things that you're looking for someone, and time box it. Hey, for the next year, can I meet and come with an agenda ahead of time and ask you questions and write down the answers to your questions because I want to be more like you when I grow up or when I get to the next promotion or when I get into cybersecurity or whatever the reason that you're seeking there. might be. The fourth of 10 things, fourth thing, be willing to share what you've learned. Now, these days, we're doing it over GoToWebinar, GoToTraining, Zoom, Teams, Ring Central, Google Meet. There's so many ways that we do that in a safe way right now, and soon we'll get to meet very soon. I'm so happy earlier to hear that Reno, June 16th through 18th, getting the crew together. I'm so excited about that. I've actually wrote that down. I'm going to see if I can work out the calendar. But in the meantime, we're kind of meeting this way. The things that we're able to connect with each other in a good way. What are the things that you've been learning? The new ways of working, the ways of connecting, maybe setting up your basement like I've set up my basement to camera and audio and things, or a new skill, a new automation that you're working on. What are the things that you've been learning that other people could learn from you? To share that so that they don't have to, investigate what's the best USB webcam or wireless mic or technology tricks that you might have figured out how to use in this moment. One thing that I did, sometimes you have more money or sometimes you have more time. Turning your inspiration, I'm inspired to do better. I think I want to learn something. I think I'd like to do better in certain areas, but then looking for ways to apply that, ways to share that. What I want for you, the pro tip for the fourth item here is become known for sharing what you're learning. Have that reputation of someone when you learn something and it's helpful to you, and it might be helpful to your colleagues, to your friends, to your boss, to others. Look for ways to go and share that as well. That's ways that we can help and learn from each other. Again, that pro tip, become known for sharing what you're learning. The great thing is, people say, wow, why is Russell doing that? And here's the dirty little secret. Here's why I do it. One, I like to be a lifelong learner. That's my goal to do that. However, I also want to kind of start and create and ideally sustain that momentum so that when you're learning something, you can share that thing with me, and then together we can all go further faster as a result of that. So the fifth one here, the fifth out of 10 things that career hacks that I think would be helpful for you, then things that I know have absolutely been helpful for me, is I'm looking at the big calendar here. Can you believe we're already in March? Can you believe it's already the 10th? Literally a week from today is St. Patrick's Day. Better find some green. You better find some green to wear. What I want for you here is to be the boss of your calendar. How do you get to be the boss of your calendar? Time blocking. So if you could see my calendar, and I guess I'm glad you can't see my calendar. You just see my screen here. You see my calendar, there's a lot of meetings. There's a lot of appointments that I have on my calendar. Not because I'm somebody who's important or have a bunch of, no, not that at all. It's because I actually do time blocking. I had time on my calendar today before our time together to go and take a 60-minute walk because, well, trying to be healthier. My doctor recently said, you got to get out and exercise more. Great. Every day, I either go out and I'll run for an hour or I'll walk for an hour. I've got that on my schedule. If someone says, hey, Russell, I want you to join a call at 10:30 Eastern today, I'd have to say, sorry, I'm busy. I've got something that I need to do. We'll have to look at another time. And then having recurring reminders, not just to do that today. The time varies sometimes. So maybe tomorrow I'll exercise at a different time, but I'll have those recurring reminders that say, I've got an appointment. There's something, maybe I'm working on a project or preparing for this presentation. Finding sometimes a non-tech hobby. That's something I had to find. Very interested in cyber and privileged to be involved in a bunch of cool organizations doing cyber for the last 22 years. Awesome, wouldn't change a thing. But what I found is I was spending so much time doing cyber things or work things or projects or being stressed out about projects and work that I was neglecting things that were most important, such as my health and hanging out and being present with my family. Actually used I had a goal 4 years ago to find a non-tech hobby. It didn't really matter what it was. Turns out it ended up being running. So I run 3 times a week. And actually, John gave me some advice way back then, 4 years ago, saying some advice that every time I put on my running shoes, and I've got an old pair of running shoes on now, I always think of that advice that John gave me. Ways that I can make sure that the run is safe, I get the most out of it, and get the most benefit from it. So what's a pro tip? Here's a pro tip. Do a calendar audit. Literally go do an audit. Now, you don't have to be an auditor, but do an audit of your calendar. Where are you spending your time? What topics are there? Is it back-to-back meetings? I tell you, I've been there, and my calendar at the last job, sometimes it'd have, at a certain time block, there have 4 different meetings, places where someone wanted me to be or go or connect or talk or listen. Crazy. Do a calendar audit. Is there a meeting that you can stop going to? Some committee that you've been on that seems like they're not really getting anywhere? And I don't know what your calendar is. I'm just talking about how mine used to be. Maybe, just maybe, as you do that calendar audit, maybe as you look at that meeting where you just kind of zone out and you try to multitask, it's like, oh, I hope it ends early because it's an awful, terrible meeting. What would it look like if you said, hey, person who invited me to this meeting, what do I really need to be there? I've noticed that in the last several meetings, there's not been an agenda. We kind of talk and gripe and moan about the same things. Is it possible if I stop going to the meeting? Now, I'll commit to read the meeting minutes. I'll look through there, and if you need something from me, I'll respond within 24 hours if there's something I can help you with. But otherwise, I'm not going to go to that meeting anymore. Why do I want you to do that? Why do I want you to consider doing that? Well, it's simple. I want you to have time to find your non-tech hobbies, to stay connected with your friends, family, loved ones, pets, neighbors, Amazon delivery person, delivery of all kinds of things person, so that you can, again, get the most out of the time that you have. Next, the 6th, and we're right at halfway done with the things that I wanted to share. Here, this one, the 6th one is be willing, whether you have to do it, whether your boss makes you do it or not, you make yourself develop an individual development plan. So make an IDP. This thing that says not my goals, not my objectives, not what my boss expects me to do in the next year, and evaluate me like in around October. So it's interesting how that happens sometimes. You get your goals, say in 1st of March, and maybe you get evaluated at the end of October, so it's not quite a year. But incremental to that, what's that thing that you want to be better at? Presenting, communicating, scripting, PowerShell, automation, forensics, so many things, such a diverse set of career opportunities, if not privileges, that we have. How can we hold ourselves accountable more than just the minimum requirement, over and above the things that you have to do? If you get stuck, here's one for you. If you can't decide, automation or forensics or blue team or red team or purple team or all kinds of functions that you want to learn more about, here's one. And it's not cyber, and it's certainly not technical. Here's what it is. What would it look like to learn about your business? Like the company that hired you that does things that are probably not cyber, may not even be IT, but understanding better what your organization is trying to achieve. What I've found is the more I know about the company I'm privileged to work for, the more likely I can tailor, ask better questions, understand, and do cybersecurity things to help that company's mission, vision, values, etc., to be much more successful. What's a pro tip that you can have here? I hope you do this one. Will you do this one? Here's the pro tip. Go to your boss at your next meeting with your agenda in hand at your meeting and say, hey, boss, leader, would you give me the objectives that you have for this year? What does your boss expect out of you? I want to understand those, and I want to hopefully help you achieve those. Why do I want you to do that? It's going to help you look good. It's going to help them look good. And you also have that extra understanding of what is their boss given to them. Now, you might recognize some things. It might be that they've copied and pasted most, all of those and put them on yours, and cool. If that's the case, then it's very clear your boss is handing off all the responsibilities. But you might just learn some things that their boss is holding them accountable to that could be helpful to you as well. So again, look for ways to know that, both holding yourself to a higher standard. What do you want to learn? What do you want to be before the year's over? I want to have these experiences or get this education or get this exposure opportunity to watch someone learn about the things they're doing. And again, find out what's important to your boss. The seventh one here, vulnerability just ahead. Be willing. Vulnerability is kind of a dirty word, and sometimes it's hard to say, just like it was almost didn't come out correctly when I said it. What would it look like if my boss were to ask me, hey, Russell, your job is to go make a hardened image on Red Hat Linux. Will you go do that before the day's over? I've got a choice. I can say, the truth is, I'm not an expert in Red Hat Linux or in any Linux, and making a hardening guide or configuration manual for that is just not something that I'm really good at. What would it look like for me in that totally made up scenario to say, hey, boss, I'm willing to learn. I need to figure this out. It's not been something I focused on before, but let me admit right now in front of, well, you and everybody, so far, my career is not intersected with configuring, hardening Red Hat Linux systems. I can learn it. I can go watch videos. I can get a book. I can take a class. I can phone a friend. I can do all kinds of things. But I don't have that just yet. What would it look like to be just a little bit? You got to test it out. You get with certain people, certain relationships, maybe easier to do that than with others. But what would it look like to admit and say, hey, I'm interested in learning things. I've just not learned that yet. I'm going to have to go and figure that one out. So what's the pro tip for vulnerability just ahead? The reminder, no matter how long you've been in cybersecurity, not that long ago, you were, and I was, and we all were the FNG. And you know what FNG stands for, right? You know that it stands for, it's an acronym. It stands for fine new gal, and it stands for fine new guy. New person on the team who didn't know and wasn't aware and was willing to learn and be that student. Not that long ago, I, you, and we were the FNG, and I didn't even notice that was going to rhyme, but there it is, just came out rhyming. Not that long ago, we were that. What are some places where we need to be that or be comfortable in that in the moment? Is should we get the request like the request that I totally made up for this example. Number eight, cute little kid here. I think that's a nice little visualization there. Here, the idea, the trick that can help make you have a successful cybersecurity career, and one that's helped me to have a successful cybersecurity career, is to be curious. Be curious. Be known as the why child. Why do we do it that way? Why does our website not work at noon every day for 5 minutes? Why does everyone have local administrator access? Why, over and over and over again to collect that information. This one leans on a little bit the previous one of being the FNG in some cases. The goal here is to remain curious. Interesting. I didn't know. I didn't know, but I wasn't aware of that. Not confrontational. Remaining curious. What I found is that sometimes just making a statement, a certain phrase that you might make over and over and over again can help you be in that position of learning, recognizing you don't know everything, I don't know everything, but together maybe we can stitch something together and respond to whatever incidents that may arise. Back at my last job, I was the new guy, FNG. I was FNG at. That was me. So many questions. I knew how my previous company worked, but I didn't know how the current company worked because I was the FNG. And so I thought, how can I ask a question in such a way that doesn't say, well, that's a dumb thing to do, or why would you do that? Or I think you never say this, never say, well, at my last job, here's how we did whatever we did. Well, that's great, but not at the last job anymore. I made a statement, and that statement was this. You ready? So here's the statement. I would start my questions with these 3 words. Help me understand. Help me understand. Help me understand why, and then help me understand when. Help me understand why a certain thing is the way that it is. It served me well for a couple of years. I would say that, and then finally, to someone's credit on my team, this individual came up to me and says, "Hey, I know, Russ, when you say that help me understand thing, it's going to be a tough question, or you're really saying, what in the world are you all thinking? What's going on? You mean it from a place of humility, and that certainly is my intent, but you're kind of questioning, maybe something is not quite right." So my pro tip for you for this one is find a statement. Use that statement. Make one better than that. Mine, of course, was help me understand, but find this way to remain curious without being confrontational. You want to talk about the issue, not the person that hardened that Red Hat server. Find a way that you can ask questions to remain curious and not be confrontational. That's my wish. That's my hope. That's what I want for you. And with that, we're going to go and now look at number 9. So 9 out of 10, as in the next one's going to be the last one. Number 9 here. I love seeing that, and I wish I had a red delete button on my keyboard. Mine's not, but a red one that says getting rid of stuff. Sometimes some of us are hoarders. Sometimes we just keep stuff that shouldn't be kept around. Here's one for you. Be willing to actually delete a security policy. Can you do that? Whoa, won't they kick you out of being a nerd and a geek and a cyber person if you do that? Here's what I know. At every company I've worked at, in my 22 years, different industries, different places, and not even thinking about one in particular, but just at all of them, there were too many policies. There were too many. I like about this many. I don't always get the last vote in that. I like about that many. They're probably not clear. They're probably too many. Okay, I'll just say it. There are too many. And they're probably, if we were to be honest with ourselves, they're probably a little bit boring. Like, I can't have to read that again. Can't I just click through that every October for Cybersecurity Awareness Month and just click? Yes, I saw the policies. I'll click anything if I don't have to read or look at or study or understand that blank policy. Here's something that you might try. Now, certainly recognizing regulations, compliance, auditors, etc., might have certain policies, just have to be in place. Okay, I get that. But for everything else, the non-mandatory, non-compulsory things, do you have too many policies? Probably you do. Here's what I like to do. For me, for lunch, this whole pandemic, I've had the same thing for lunch almost every single day. Of course, I've had the same view in my basement every single day as well, because not been traveling, been here. But for lunch, I'll go upstairs to the refrigerator, and I've got a friend of mine introduced me to this Ninja blender. It's a cool name, and man, I think it could just tear up and pulverize almost anything I could put in there. But I've got this Ninja blender, and for every lunch this whole pandemic, I've been having a smoothie. So I've got certain ingredients. I've gotten pretty good at figuring out the proportion of the ingredients. And one of the key ingredients, so Publix is the nearby store. I'm very fortunate where we live in Metro Atlanta. There's like everything is everywhere. Usually like within 5 miles in any direction, you can find what you're looking for. And I'm lucky from our neighborhood, You can go 1 mile to the left or 1 mile to the right, and there's a Publix at both sides. Now, I've got my favorite one, and I turn right, and I go to my favorite Publix. But there, I found that if you put sweetened almond milk in your smoothie, it's such a good smoothie. Totally recommend that. Didn't know that existed until my daughter introduced me to Publix sweetened almond milk. I always have several tubs of it in the refrigerator because I've been eating smoothies almost every single day of the pandemic. As I reach into the refrigerator and I pull back that carton of Publix sweetened almond milk, what do I look at? What thing do I look at before I put that in as one of my primary ingredients? What is it that I'm looking for? Yeah, I'm looking for the expiration date. If the date on my Apple Watch is greater than the date on my Publix sweetened almond milk, I'm going to pour it down the drain, rinse it out, and recycle the container and go get another one because I don't want to get sick if I have expired milk in my smoothie. Why do I say that? Well, one, I love smoothies for lunch. But the most important reason is, what if you thought about your policies the same way? What if you actually put an expiration date on your security policies that would force you to, as you look at it, maybe every October, every January, every sometime on an annual basis, policy's still boring. There's still too many of them. They're still not very clear. As a reminder to, as much as you can, and you might have to work with HR people and legal people and privacy people and other colleagues in your company to make it not as boring, much more clear, and ideally not have so many of them. Pro tip for this one, I'm telling you, if you do this, if you think of the smoothies and you think of the ways I've been trying to communicate this one for the ninth, next to the last one, it'll make you a hero by just asking those questions. How can we get a better result with less reams of paper for our policies, protect the company, protect our employees, protect our customers, but do so in a way that's not so policy? Okay, are you ready? 10th, and the final thing that I wanted to share. It's been absolute delight to get to spend this time. Mine is blown to look at the number of people still here, hanging out, typing in the Discord and sharing this almost hour with us. So the last one here, I guess there are some words, although I didn't type it, it was a picture, but I guess I could have fixed that. So be intentional about your plan. These things I've shared are lessons that I've had to learn the hard way. Again, that best advice I've ever been given, get wisdom as cheaply as you can. Get wisdom as cheaply as you can. Be intentional about your plan. Revisit it every quarter. Document what you've been learning. Share it with your boss or bosses. Everybody's got a boss's boss's boss. So think about sharing with them. Why do I want you to do that? As you start to learn things and you start and create that momentum in your life, on your calendar, in your meetings, in your policies, and all the places that we've talked about the last 36 minutes. Document that. Maybe put it in a notepad or an Evernote. I use Evernote a lot. Typing things in there. So that when the end of the year review comes, it'll be a breeze. I will copy, paste. Hey, I did this. I learned that. I got this class. I got that certification. I got exposed to this new way of thinking or learn more about the business, whatever it was. All because you decided to hopefully take one, just one. I've told you 10 things. I want you to do just one. Just pick one and do it over and over and over and over again. Seriously, what I want you to do is spend like 5 seconds right now. Look through these. You've already got the PDF in the Discord. It's already there. Find just one of them and put a recurring calendar reminder. Make a promise. Pinky swear to yourself. There's my pinky. Pinky swear to yourself. Pinky swear to yourself. The future you will definitely thank the current you. The future you will definitely thank the current you. So here they are, again, all 10, and you see they all start with be, like be known, be willing, be a mentor, be vulnerable, be curious, be willing to delete a security policy, be intentional about the plans that you have. In the call to action, my call to action for you, my thing that I want you to create and sustain momentum is take one of them. Don't try to do all 10. You might be a type A. I'm a type A. I want to do all 10 too, but just do one. Set up a recurring calendar reminder. Let alerts go off on your phone, your watch, your devices, and all the things that it goes off on. Your future you will definitely thank you. Why do I know this is true? A little bit over 11 years ago, a good friend, an informal mentor to me for many, many years, and still to this day. And I've told this person this story when we were together at RSA last year. Wow, I'm looking at my last year calendar. Wow, it was really that long ago, the last week of February. A little bit over a year ago, I got to share with my informal mentor this story. Ask my informal mentor over 11 years ago, why is it that you're so successful? What is it that you do that if I did just a little bit of, I could be partially as successful as what you are? And this person said to me, and I reminded them a year and a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, they said this to me way back then. They told me that they decided that they wanted to be the best cybersecurity professional possible. So they decided to get up at 5 every morning. And at 5 every morning, get up and work on something. I said, well, what did you work on? What are you working on? Well, it doesn't matter. You get up and you work on something. And for an hour, maybe 2 hours, every single day, get up and learn, work on, prepare for, do something so she can get a step closer to being the very best cybersecurity professional out there. So I thought, well, that's what I'll do. Never really been a morning person, but I remember when we moved to Atlanta 11 years ago, set my alarm. I didn't have an iPhone back then, whatever phone, maybe a BlackBerry, but turned on my phone, set an alarm, and on the alarm it said, it's time to wake up. First couple of times I hit snooze. That's no fun. Who wants to get up at 5 in the morning? I've got a busy day. Kids in middle school, just moved to Atlanta. Don't know anybody in Atlanta. What's going on? And the next day came. Hit the snooze, didn't do it. The third day came. I thought, you know what? My friend told me the key to his success was getting up at 5 every morning and working on something. Okay, I'm going to do it. So I got up. Third day. Okay, well, what am I going to do? Got a cup of coffee, ready to go, look at my computer, and there's email, there's Twitter, there's all these things. And I started spending my time doing that. Next day comes around, day 4 for me. I do that, and about halfway through, I thought, wait a second, 5 in the morning. You know what? My email will be there at 5 in the evening. That Facebook or Twitter or whatever things we had, platforms we had back then, will be there at night. Why do I want to get up early and do this stuff? That's no fun. I better have a list of things I want to do. Otherwise, this is not very fun. So on day 5, the 5th day of the first week, 11 plus years ago, I started to say, what are the things that I want to learn? Maybe I want to learn scripting, or maybe I want to learn PowerShell, or how to give a better presentation, or whatever it is I'm learning. And I started making a list. And to this day, I've still not got to the end of that list. I'm still not hitting my snooze button. I'm still getting up early and working on something. It's been true for me for the last 11 years. And I want the very same thing for each and every. I can't believe there's so many of you still here in this. I want the very same thing for you. So last thing I've got is how to get a hold of me, places to find me. No, it has been an absolute pleasure for me to get to share with you from the heart stories I've never shared before, never given this presentation before, made it just for you, just for this moment, to help you to get wisdom as cheaply as you can and help you to be the most successful cybersecurity professional possible. And that, my friends, is all I've got to say about that.
Russell, thank you so much for being with us today. I've seen so many great comments in the Discord server about your presentation style. Someone said it's the first time they've ever heard you and they're just amazed. So kudos and thank you again. I also loved a comment from Tess who said no one should care as much about your career as you do, right?
So true.
It's your life, and that's so true. And I thought that was just a great comment to share for those of you who didn't get to see it.
Oh, and I know Tess. Tess and I go back 3-4 years ago, so that means a whole lot. And that I know exactly who that is means even more. So Tess, thank you.
We do have some questions, not only in Discord, but in the GoToWebinar as well. So if you don't mind, Russ, real quick, tossing a few questions out there.
Sure.
So the first one is from Mark, and he's asking, isn't there a downside to always being the question person? How does one not eventually become the annoying person?
Yeah, it's an art versus a science. I mentioned earlier to do the 5 whys. You can look that up, the Japanese 5 whys. If you type that in, it'll tell you. But try one. Try asking one question. What was the response? Is your boss, is your colleague annoyed? And then try 2. And to find that sweet spot of how to not be annoying, but be curious enough and show interest enough to want to be better.
Awesome. All right. And then Whitney is asking, what is the best way to have a conversation around burnout and or having too much on your plate?
Yeah, that was me. I ended up in extremely bad health because I was working so much all the time, neglecting my health and other things. And you can't quite see it, but some good friends of mine 4 years ago said, hey, Russell, come run a half marathon with us. And I said, well, I like hanging out with you. And it's mutual friends of Velda and mine. And they said, hey, come do that. And it'd be fun. I'm like, I like hanging out with you, but I'm not running. I said, but you know what? Let me sleep on it. Let me think if I can find some excuse to bow out. And I slept on it and came back to them the next day. And I said, you know what? I can't think of a reason not to. So I started walking. And for months and months, I would walk. And then finally, I would start to run a little bit. And then like a little bit, like a few steps, a little bit. And then over time, every day I would go out and do something. I would move. And I'll never, ever, ever forget crossing the finish line at Disney for the Disney Star Wars Dark Side Half Marathon 4 years ago. And since then, got plenty of races and plenty of places I've run. But having a non-tech something to do was so critical for me. But it all started with a friend of mine said, why don't you come and join us? We like you. We want you to go run with us. But I desperately needed something besides a screen. And it could have been anything, but I was so glad that I found that. And matter of fact, just last Sunday, I ran my 3rd marathon. All because I said yes to my friends.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Congrats.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Bronwyn said that they've implemented what they call self-care Sundays. So one day a week is reserved to doing things just for them and their well-being, which I think is an awesome idea.
Mm-hmm. I've got an alarm on my clock, or I've got an alarm on my phone, is what I was trying to say. It says every weekday, 6 p.m. I don't know if you can see it or not. Every weekday, 6 p.m., alarm goes off. I want to be the world's best husband and father every weekday. So at 6 o'clock, I've got this reminder that says, I've got screens and those things, but I need to stop and be present. And I think that it really goes a practical way to implement that self-care Sunday. It's been very helpful for me.
That's a great idea, Russell.
I totally stole it from somebody, but it's working well for me.
I think it's a phenomenal idea. And it's, I know I tend to set up my desk and have lunch or, just do things that aren't necessarily healthy, even for my mentality, right? So it's so important, to take time, to have that healthy work-life balance, right? I do want to let you know, for people who do talks, we do send out a really nice challenge coin. So, can you see it? It's our Wild West challenge
coin. I'll put it right there in my collection. I love that. I can't wait. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be sending that out to you. we like to give them to people who join us and do these kind of talks. So we'll be sending out, for those of you who are wondering, you can also earn them just by helping, right? Whether you become a nerd herder in our Discord channel and help people by posting links and those kinds of things. You know, we like to reward people for doing good things. So that's what we're all about over here.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to know how to become a nerd herder, there is a channel in Discord called the Nerd Herders, and that has the list of, you know, things that you need to do to become one and explain what the responsibilities of one are. Someone is asking how to contact you to give a talk. So I'm not sure, Mark, if you're asking about us as a Wild West team or if you're talking about Russell specifically. But Velda, did you want to have an answer to that?
Well, we can, you know what, if you're interested in giving a talk, you know, contact me here on the Discord server. I'm more than happy to assist and get you, you know, we can talk about what you're thinking. I'm more than happy to do that. If you're looking to connect with Russell, I'm happy to connect you as well with him. So just reach out to me on Discord. We'll make that happen.
We got one more question because I know we have a few minutes left. There are a lot of jobs that require a security clearance. Any advice on how to get security clearance?
I can say my experience with that. My understanding is it's the job and the agency or the employer that requires that, and they'd be the ones to have that process be adjudicated or kind of go through the vetting process. My understanding is you can't just go out and get one and then say, I've got one, so now hire me because I've got one. So I think it's very specific to the job, to the mission, to the agency, you know, the three-letter agency perhaps that needs or requires that. It's a long process, very long process. And you sure hope that when you submit all that information information doesn't get lost or stolen or say by Chinese adversaries that might already have that information.
Someone wants to know how not to let your boss to amuse you being vulnerable in your evaluation and promotion. I'm not sure if I read that wrong. It's in the Discord, so I'm not sure if you can see it, Russell.
And I'd say that's just like asking the whys and being curious. I think try as an experiment. Maybe say to yourself, okay, today I'm going to tell my boss I don't know how to configure a Red Hat Linux server and see how they take it. Do they take it like, oh, I hired you for that? Or ooh, you know, here's an expert, here's someone that can help you, or maybe they have the skills and maybe they can help you. So start small in a safe way and see what happens. When the meeting's over, go back to your desk or go back to wherever you're at and evaluate how well did that go. If it went well, a little bit more bigger experiment, a little bit more bigger experiment. And when it hurts and when you say, ooh, they really hated when I said that, you know, tone it down from that's too much. That's a cue that it was just too much. I'm not saying, you know, disclose all your deep, dark secrets by any means, but to just say, here's where I'm at, willing to learn, but I just don't know the thing that you want me to know or I need to know. Can you help me solve for that gap?
You know, again, Russell, thank you so much for doing this for us. Really, really appreciate you sharing your knowledge with our community. And I get the feeling you were a pretty big hit. So,
oh, thank you. Well, it was a pleasure. I've said this to you before. So the thing I always remember, Velda, is when I saw you and the time for us being together was almost over, you'd always look at me and you'd say, and you might have said it to everybody, but you said it to me, when will I get to see you again? And it meant so much. It's been a long time since you've said that, but I look forward to when you get to say that in person to me
I look
again.
forward when I get to see you again. Hopefully in person this time.
Absolutely. And what a great community. I've been an attendee of these before, very familiar, such a fan of your company, this work. The way y'all give back is extraordinary, and I really admire that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much,
Appreciate
Russell.
that. And, you know, it's all about helping, right? Bottom line is we help each other.